Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Noeleen Smyth, and I'm Assistant Professor of Horticulture in UCD in the Environment and Sustainable Resource Management Unit. Today I'm going to talk to you about wildflowers. So I'm just going to share my screen here. And the title of my talk today is Spreading Seeds of Doubt. What are wildflowers and where should you plant them? So today's online talk, I will discuss all these issues. So first of all, for everybody, what is a wildflower? Well, a wildflower is a flower that grows somewhere in the wild. So you can see here a daffodil. This is Narcissus, pseudo-Narcissus, and this can be found in the wild, surprisingly, in Western Eurasia. So the Oxford English Dictionary of this is a flower of an uncultivated variety or flower growing freely without human intervention. So here we are, here's us intervening in our gardens, which we really enjoy doing. And we often select forms. So we often select forms to be bigger, brighter, more scented. So this is a Narcissus double white line, which would not be found in the wild. So you can see there, so our definition around what is a wildflower. So growing freely, basically, without human intervention. So wildflowers are different in different parts of the world. So if you're in New York, you actually have New York wildflowers in New York. If you're in the Mediterranean, we have a different suite of wildflowers. And in Ireland here, we have also our own native Irish wildflowers. So we can grow the world flowers in our garden. And here is one of OPW's properties. This is the National Botanic Gardens. And you can see here, there's a nice array of spring bedding there. So they have over 15,000 different plant species from all around the world. And you can go see them in the National Botanic Gardens. So we can grow all of the world's flowers. And there's the National Botanic Gardens, and you can take nice tours around there. So in Ireland, if we were to pick where is the place where we would actually find Irish wildflowers most of all, so the best place to see Irish wildflowers is in the Burren in County Clare. This habitat is limestone pavement, so it's quite rare. But you also have meadows managed in traditional methods. So you still have farmers low density grazing, you have hay cutting, all those nice things. So there's some very special plants down there. And this is where 70% of Irish wildflowers can be found. So you can see it starts in spring with the beautiful blue gentian, which is a lovely time to visit. But then right through the summer, then you get these wonderful orchids, these dactylorizes, some wonderful mixes, Arctic alpines with dryas there, and then these wonderful kind of flowery meadows. And this is really, I think, what our vision of wildflower is. So this is the Burren in County Clare, and this is Mullaghmore, and this is where you would find lots of our Irish wildflowers, and that's where about 70% of them all still live today. So many people want to grow wildflowers to help save the bees, and the bees do a lot of work for us. So if we were to basically do the job of a bee. So if everyone went out to try and pollinate plants, it would cost us 220 million to pollinate maybe some of our crops and some of our fruit plants. So it's quite a lot of money. So they do a big job for us. Bees love flowers, so they really like these single open flowers where you can see the central part of the flower and they can access the nectar and pollen. So these very nice flat and open flowers, because bees actually have tiny little tongues, so they actually have quite short tongues. So anything that's quite deep, they don't really like, they can't really get at the nectar and the pollen. So they're quite short tongues. And this is something to remember if you want to grow flowers to help save the bees. And the bees really need our help because a third of our Irish bee species are under threat of extinction in Ireland. So something really serious has to be done. So there's lots of wildflower packets when you go to the garden centres or to the supermarket. And a lot of people ask me, what should I choose or what should I do? Well, when I went to look at the wildflower packets that are for sale in many of our shops and garden centres, I found that many of them are a fantasy. So really they're flowers from lots of different places mixed up together, and they're really it's kind of like a fantasy. Like a lot of meadow species are mixed with cornflower species and things like that. So in one packet I found cosmos from Mexico was mixed with borage from Europe and also poppies from Europe. Another one, scarlet flax from Albania, was mixed in with calendula, and we don't really know where calendula comes from anymore, so it's not actually a wildflower, it lives with man. And then there's lots of these colorful cornflowers wildflowers, which exists really nowhere in the wild. So this was a blog I wrote called Spreading Seeds of Doubt and the Fake Wildflower Mixes. So really, I would say to you, these are flower mixes. They're not necessarily wildflower mixes, and they're certainly, they're not Irish species, nor are they sourced in Ireland. So a lot of the packets you see for sale, and you can read the blog there, which is one of the reasons I'm talking to you today. And this is calendula, which you often find the bees actually really like calendula. So it's a very good plant to grow for the bees in your garden, but really they're not a wildflower. You actually can't find them in the wild anymore. So does it matter really what species are or where are they from once the bees like them? Well, the thing is, no, it doesn't. You know, if you have lots of flowers, there'll be lots of bees. And bees really like lots of different flowers. So you can look up, you know, perfect for pollinators. There's many garden plants, you know, that are not native to Ireland that are really good for the bees. But I would just highlight to you, most of the wildflower mixes for sale in these packets are flowers that just flower in the summertime. And there's already kind of lots of flowers around for the bees. So the bees really need, they need lots of food and they need lots of shelter. So early in the year, when they're emerging from hibernation, that's when we really need to be feeding our bees. And early in the year, one of our perfect native wildflowers is Dandelion Taraxacum officinale. And this is this. And it's kind of many people, I talk to many gardeners and it's like, oh, it's the scourge of gardens. But if you want to grow something for bees and you want to grow something, pick something that flowers and is accessible for the bees early. So if you didn't want dandelions, you could probably have maybe things like crocus if it's just a bridge too far for you. So as I say, bees come out of hibernation here in Ireland quite early in the year, so around February. So anything flower that you want to plant that's up early or around late in the year is really good for the bees. So in the summertime, there's lots of flowers around for the bees. So a lot of these wildflower mixes that people plant, as I said to you, they're not necessarily wild. They're just basically flower mixes. They look great. But these actually are only good in the summertime. So really, we need to be thinking about shelter for our bees, and we need to think about early in the year and late in the year as well. And even the humble ivy late in the year has plenty of flowers ready to feed the bees. So another place where I see lots of people planting these wildflower mixes is in road verges, and I really I think this is not a good thing to do. So if you're basically looking at the road verges are actually quite important to us here in Ireland at the moment. So they already have Irish wildflowers growing in them in many instances, and some people take them out to plant in exotic wildflowers or exotic flowers. So, well, we already have lots of Irish wildflowers there. So really don't take out any root verges to put in these flower mixes. So there's some statistics around this. So wildflower meadows have disappeared by about 97% in the UK, which is really, really shocking. And some of these remnants of these old meadows with management and letting them grow, really these can be just found in our road verges. And in Ireland, we have similar statistics. So we've lost about a third of our annexed lowland hay meadows. These are very important ones on a European scale. And a third has been lost in about the last 6 years, which is really, really shocking. So management has changed on farmland. So that's why our road verges are very, very important. So please don't take anything out by the side of the road to plant these exotic wildflower mixes, because they're not native wildflowers in many instances. And really, we already have enough. And this is a wonderful road verge up here in Donegal. You can see there's wonderful meadowsweet, the purple lightrum, and the flag iris. And this is beautiful road verge, which occurs naturally. So really, I would make an appeal today is to save our road verges. And a lot of our wildflowers, our actual native wildflowers, are under threat. And it's surprising for many of us to think that cornflower, which is pretty ubiquitous in all of these packets, is almost extinct in Ireland. And we had only one recent find by Micheline Sheedy Skeffington in 2015. And there was one site in Clare, and that's only our one recent site with 23 plants. So these are very, very precious to us. These are our actual native Irish cornflowers, and you can see many packets for sale with cornflowers, but these lots of different colors. But don't be under any illusion that these are Irish wildflowers. So, and again, don't plant these exotic wildflowers anywhere where there's native species. So these guys can become biopollutants. They can cross with our native species, or they can escape. So just something to be aware of. They're okay in a garden setting. Feel free to plant them in your garden, but make sure they don't escape and they don't seed around the place. Often I would see dumps around the place with garden waste and a lot of these exotic flowers popping up. So first check what wildflowers you already might have, and you might be able to increase Irish wildflowers and increase native wildflowers by reduced mowing, and it just might be a very simple option for you. So here I've got these in my back garden. These are lots of daisies and dandelions, and pollinators actually love them. So by reducing the mowing, we can let these flowers, and the bees and the pollinators really like them. Again, humble clover, another wonderful plant for the bees. Nice short little flowers there, nice short with their tongues. Again, don't forget about our butterflies and our caterpillars. They also need maybe some grasses as well. So it's not all about the flowers. We also need grasses to support caterpillar stage, and we also need lots of herbs, other herbs. So as I say to you, there's lots of videos on pollinators.ie and how reducing mowing can bring about a great positive benefit for biodiversity and a great positive and a wonderful native Irish wildflower meadow in your back garden. So we rely a lot on tourism, and people come here because, and I think it's the reason we all go west or to the southwest, we definitely connect with this kind of landscape, this traditional kind of more flower meadow type landscape. And this is quite unusual in a modern agricultural sense. So a lot of visitors really like this, and visitors really like looking at these kind of things. So down in the west, down in the Burren, wonderful to see some of these fields traditionally managed. So we really need to support our places with Irish wildflowers. And, basically there's a lot of consumer demand for wildflower seed for pollinators, but I would say to you, don't mow, just let it grow. There might be already lots of Irish wildflowers around in your garden or along the road verge. So we really need to conserve our rarest Irish wildflowers, much like our cornflowers there, and to support our native biodiversity. And again, it's people and it's management. We need to support the people whose farming practices support our rarest Irish wildflowers. So we need to support people making hay. If we want any Irish native wildflowers to go on into the future, we really need people out there grazing a traditional way, cattle grazing, small herds, and we also need people making hay, and this will help conserve our Irish wildflowers. So there's a lot of debate over, and this is one article recently, which was in the Irish Times, Michael Viney, and it says basically Trinity College, but they don't really, botanists and naturalists don't really think Trinity Wildflower Meadow is any good. And this meadow at Trinity is within an urban setting, and it's an ornamental meadow. It's basically planted to raise awareness. It's not meant to be an exact replica of the wild. It's here to provide plants for pollinators. So a lawn, a manicured lawn, will not have any plants in it for pollinators. And this is why Trinity basically planted this meadow here. It's not meant to be the exact replica of the wild. Nothing can replace the wild, but really just to raise awareness. So this is an ornamental meadow, and this whole fashion really started I'll just go back there, for meadows around the London Olympics. I think this is where the first time I really see these pictorial or these ornamental meadows, and really they're modern and they're built things. They don't occur naturally like those packets of seeds with lots of species mixes in them from Europe and from Mexico and all these different places mixed up together. So really it's a bit of a trend. So it's basically a big trend since the London Olympics, these flower rich or modern meadows. And they look wonderful and they're really good things. There's plenty of flowers in them for the bees. They're a great thing to have in our cities and basically in our urban environments. So really the switch is like grey to green in the urban landscape, and we've very little wild left. As I said, we're losing our hay meadows, we're losing these things. So biodiversity is in a very drastic state. So anything we can plant around our cities is actually really good to help support biodiversity. So to me, there's no debate. These are meadows in an urban setting. They're ornamental meadows, they're pictorial meadows, they're packed full of flowers. And it's really to please the people as well as the pollinators. So there really is no debate. Nothing can replace the wild. So I would say to you, think first and then sow later if you have to. So the first question you would ask yourself is, am I in a rural or urban setting? So if you're in an urban setting, there's very little native species around you, very little native biodiversity. And really you can support that by planting lots of things. So, but in many instances in housing estates around Dublin, basically grassland management is really enough to encourage native wildflowers. Like I said, that was my back garden in Swords with lots of daisies, lots of dandelions, and I had lots of pollinators out there in the springtime. So really, there might be, and clovers came later, so there might be plenty of species already in your lawn. So really, it's just a matter of managing your mowing regime, and that would be enough to encourage many native Irish wildflowers, and also be a huge support to the bees. But really, if you have to plant them in a garden and you want your garden to look pretty and you want those pictorial meadows, that's great. Bees also love them, but just to be aware that if you want to support Irish bees, make sure to get in plants that are there for early in the year and also late in the year, as well as the summertime. And I suppose really, yeah, that's the thing. Do you want, what's your ultimate aim with sowing wildflowers? Is it just for visual? Is it that pictorial meadow? Is it that ornamental look? And if that's it, well, then go for it, and go for it within your garden. But don't rip out road verges, and don't rip out anywhere that there might be some native vegetation. Just please don't do that. Sorry about this screen share here. And I would say weigh up the aim for your site. Is your ultimate aim to be visual, or to benefit insects, or to both? So I would say to you, really stop and think and look at your site before you start to do anything or start to sow anything, because you might already have lots of Irish wildflowers hidden away there. So thanks for listening today. My name is Noeleen Smyth, and that's my email address there at ucd.ie. If you want more information on the economic benefits of plants and animals and stuff, you can look up Natural Capital Ireland. There's lots of great information there, and it's free to join. The All Ireland Pollinator Plan has lots of different advice and guidance for everybody. And if you look up the All Ireland Pollinator Plan, pollinator.ie, you can find lots of help for every situation there. And as I say, thanks to the OBW and National Parks and Wildlife, these support many of our wild places. And thanks for listening, and thanks for having me along today. And I know the OBW have many properties all around the country, and doing huge amounts for biodiversity now. And there's a new impetus and interest in supporting biodiversity in all her historic properties. So thank you. And just a list of websites, as I said, pollinators.ie. If you're in a garden setting and you want to garden with nature in mind, there's a very nice little booklet there. Naturenerd.ie, Gardening for Biodiversity. And you can learn more on how to identify wildflowers and meadow species on MBWS research projects on grasslands. And for identification, you can't really beat Zoe Devlin's new little guide, Wildflowers of Ireland. So it's very easy to use, just color coded. So thanks for listening today. It's been a great pleasure for me to be here with you all. Thanks so much.